Welcome to This Explainer. Today, we're unpacking a really fascinating garden mystery straight from part 979 of Gardener Ng's personal notes. We're going to figure out why an aggressively invasive plant, a total weed, is actually being deliberately cultivated on a backyard balcony. You know, it's that classic battle of a gardener trying to control nature, but this one, it comes with a super surprising and honestly highly visual twist. Let's get right into it. So here is the big question, the central paradox of Ng's blog. Why on earth would you keep a notorious garden invader alive on purpose? I mean, for most of us, seeing a weed triggers this almost instinctive reflex to just yank it right out by the roots, right? But Ng is doing the exact opposite. They're intentionally keeping this invader around. To understand what's going through their head, we first need to figure out exactly what kind of botanical adversary we're dealing with here. Meet the culprit. Gripweed, or if you prefer the sciencey name, phyllanthus-niruri. It's a highly invasive, incredibly fast-growing plant that actually doubles as a traditional herb. Now, Ng admits something pretty hilarious in their notes. They constantly forget its name. They've literally written about this exact plant in parts 335, 377, and 579 of their notes. But because it grows so ruthlessly on the balcony, it kind of just blends into the background noise of the garden. It is literally everywhere. So if it's such a common nuisance, why hasn't it been completely wiped out? Section 1. A weed worth keeping. Let's look at its redeeming qualities. This right here perfectly captures that exact friend or foe tension Ng is wrestling with. On the destructive side, you've got this highly invasive plant with explosive seed production that actively chokes out carefully chosen ornamental plants. It's a total nightmare for a curated space. But wait, look at the redeeming side. It's completely non-toxic for both pets and humans, it can be used as an herb, and Ng explicitly points out it is absolutely fantastic for photography. So while Ng does rip some of it out, they are actually intentionally keeping several pots around just to evaluate and observe it. It's a really tricky balancing act, something anyone trying to manage a living space knows all too well. Section 2, Beauty in the Details. Let's talk about macro photography. See, Ng intentionally keeps quite a few pots of gripweed around, specifically to photograph them up close. And when you zoom in, you absolutely see why. It boasts these gorgeous, feathery green leaves running down long, thin stems, and it features these tiny, hidden little berries tucked right underneath the foliage. These unique visual traits make it an incredible subject for a macro lens. It stops being just some frustrating weed and transforms into this complex, delicate piece of biology. Ng recognizes that artistry and literally pauses the eradication process just to capture it. Kind of makes you realize even the most annoying invaders have a little bit of magic to them, right? Section 3, Anatomy of an Invader. Time to look at its aggressive traits. Now take a look at gripweed's invasive arsenal. Fast life cycle, explosive seed production, rapid germination, extreme hardiness. These rapid-fire survival tools allow it to take over an area so ruthlessly. It doesn't just grow, you guys, it conquers. While a gardener might be distracted admiring those cute tiny berries, this plant is rapidly dropping seeds and germinating entirely new generations like wildfire. But what's truly fascinating is this specific detail straight from Ng's notes. Gripweed has an extensive, shallow taproot. This hidden secret weapon right beneath the soil is the actual key to its overwhelming invasiveness. It's not just about what you see above ground with all that rapid seed production. It's about how aggressively it anchors down and steals water and nutrients right at the surface layer, exactly where all the other plants are trying to feed. So the main takeaway here is that it has a massive, unfair, subterranean advantage from the very second it sprouts. Ng observed that even on a tiny, newly sprouted seedling, like barely out of the dirt, if you pull it up, you'll find a remarkably mature and well-developed root system. It hits the ground running. By the time you even notice those delicate feathery leaves popping up on your balcony, it already has an iron grip on the soil underneath it. Section 4, the balcony battle. The turf war begins. The gripweed is literally choking out the curated plants, turning the balcony into a full-on battlefield. Ng explicitly notes that it's actively outcompeting the surrounding lawn grasses and the carefully chosen ornamentals, specifically mentioning their portulaca. Now, portulaca is this beautifully delicate flowering plant, but honestly, it stands absolutely zero chance against the extreme hardiness and the mature root system of the gripweed. It is a dire situation for the ornamental plants, because the invader is rapidly winning the turf war for space and essential resources, which brings us to the ultimate decision. Ng mentions a plan to eventually, quote, declutter the balcony for good. And that leaves us with a really fascinating dilemma. As we've seen throughout this explainer, this plant is a total paradox. When exactly does a plant cross the line from being a useful, non-toxic herb that is stunning to photograph to a destructive weed that absolutely must be ripped out? As Aang prepares to finally clean out this garden space, we have to ask ourselves how we define the value of nature we curate in our own lives. If you were standing on that balcony right now, trowel in hand, staring at those delicate leaves but knowing all about that ruthless taproot, where would you draw the line?